Welcome to the Beyond Food Show. I'm Stephanie Dodier, clinical nutritionist, weight loss, and emotional eating expert, speaker, and founder of the Keto Connector program. As an ex-corporate executive turned health expert, I went through my own healing journey, losing 100 pounds and overcoming a number of diagnosed conditions. The secret to my transformation? The moment I realized that the solution was more than just about food. It was about connecting my mind and my body and listening to my body messages. Each week, I'll bring you a guest or answer your question to help you listen and observe your body in a curious and compassionate way with a French accent and a little bit of humor. The most important relationship you have is the one with yourself, so get ready to embrace it and rock your body and mind to the life you desire. Let's do this. Welcome to episode 46, and today we have Alexandra Jamieson, the author of Women, Food, and Desire. And we dive in, like literally dive into the topic of what it means to be a woman in front of your craving and how things such as sexuality, desire, and the big one, the P word, perfectionism, plays into fueling those craving and those desire. If you are a woman, you must listen in. It's a wonderful and powerful interview for you ladies. Now, I want to take a minute to share with you one of the testimonial for the Keto Connector, because we are almost at the 1 month mark of the launch of my first book, The Keto Connector, the book and the program. And the people who purchased it are almost at the end of their full 30-day program. And some of the testimonials that are coming in are absolutely wonderful. And this one is from Mary. And it says, it helped me to fully realize and reconnect the dot as the importance of the mind, body, and soul connection. It has literally, in a short period of time, I have several haha moment and light bulb, just to name of a few things, and I'm grateful for that. And in relationship to today's podcast, that is very important. We as women have an internal emotional connection, some people may call it intuition, that is very strong inside of us. And if we don't retune in to that aspect of us being a woman, chances are it's going to keep driving craving inside of us because we need to reconnect with that and we're avoiding doing that step. And writing the Keto Connector and creating that program was, and it still is, the way to reconnect to that and to reestablish a proper relationship to food. Understanding that, yes, food is nutrition, but food is so much more than that. And that's the whole podcast, right? Going beyond the food. So it's all tied in together. So wanted to share that with you because I thought that was very powerful in face of today's episode. So are you ready to dive into Women, Food, and Desire with Alex? If you're so, let's do this. As a best-selling author of Women, Food, and Desire, co-creator and co-star of the Oscar-nominated documentary Super Size Me, and highly sought-after wellness expert for thousands, Alexandra Jamieson has made it her mission to empower women to create epic lives by honoring their craving and kicking body shame to the curb. She is a creator of Her Rule Radio, #1 rated podcast on iTunes, where listeners from around the world are educated on captivated by thought-provoking interview on wellness, craving, sexuality, and more. Her work has been praised and adored by Oprah Winfrey, The Today Show, Dr. Oz, Martha Stewart, New York Times, CNN, Fox News, Elle, Marie Claire, US Today, People, and American Heart Association, among many. Welcome to the show, Alexandra.
Thank you so much. Good to be here.
Thank you for coming in. And I was sharing with Alex just a little bit earlier that she's a book that I read almost, a year and a half ago that your book came out, right?
Yeah, 2 years ago.
2 years ago. And it kind of changed my own world because I knew intuitively that craving meant more than just being a sugar addiction or being some kind of physical component, but there was more to this. And it started my journey and the emotional connection from mind and body from a craving perspective. So thank you for that.
That is so cool. I love to hear that.
You never know when you write something who it's going to impact in the world.
Never do. I love it.
So what I want to start with and what I do with every single person that come on the podcast is your journey. Because I find for each one of us in this realm of health and wellness, there is some kind of personal component that lead us to where we are right now in our teaching. So you have a journey because I know you, but I want my listener to understand where you came from. Where is it all started for you?
Well, I grew up in a totally unusual way, and I've come so full circle. I grew up on an old organic farm outside of Portland, Oregon. My parents bought an old farmhouse. My mom had an organic gardening radio show for 10 years when I was a kid. I would even go on once a year and talk about kids gardening. And it was so cute. But I also was a serious sugar fiend. And because we never had it in the house, I used all of my allowance. I would get extra babysitting jobs to go buy it. It was like the you're not allowed to have it, so I became a rebel kind of thing. I actually started going to Sunday school at the church down the street from our house because I found out that kids at Sunday school got Kool-Aid and cookies. So I would get up on Sunday mornings by myself and go to church basically for the snacks.
Cute.
That's how obsessed I was. So I had 12 cavities by the time I was 12. And by, from ages 15 to 25, you really have control over your own diet. And I moved to New York City at 25 and got really, really sick. And I was having migraine headaches almost every day. I was depressed, exhausted. I had put on about 30 pounds since college. So in just, 3 or 4 years, I put on 30 pounds and I was like, wait, why do I feel so bad? I'm only 25. I should not feel this bad. So I went to a doctor, and within 5 minutes of barely listening to me, he gave me 2 prescriptions for painkillers and Prozac. And luckily, or not so luckily, I have a family history of addiction to prescription drugs and just addiction to a lot of things in my family. And my first reaction was, no way am I taking these. That goes down a dangerous, dangerous path. So I took the prescriptions. I never filled them. And I went to another doctor. Like one of the doctors with like a Buddha and a fern and a little water. Yeah, the woo-woo doctors. Now we would call it a functional medicine doctor. But this was this was 2000. So he sat down with me for an hour and he asked me what I was eating and how I was living. And he said, "Oh, no wonder you're sick." And he gave me a list of foods to eat and a list of foods to avoid and some supplements because I had almost no vitamins in my whole body. And I almost cried because the whole list of foods to avoid was everything I was living on. But my body and my soul just said, yes, this is the answer. Heal your body. Don't just mask the symptoms. And he recommended a couple books. So I went to the library and I looked up these books. And when I got to the section, I realized there were 1,000 books on food and healing and cooking. And over the next few months, I read all of them. And I quickly became completely vegan because I read Diet for a New America. And it was pretty close to the diet the doctor put me on, although his diet had fish. So I thought, I'll just take it a step further and just, do the whole thing. Because that's how I am, like go a step further.
Type A personality, would you say?
Maybe recovering type A,
okay.
Maybe. Yeah. Yeah, very much so. So I felt amazing. Within 2 weeks, the headaches were gone, which I can now see. I had full body candida. I was a total sugar addict for so long. I had been on antibiotics a dozen times. And I felt incredible and I had seen the light. And I thought, everybody needs to be vegan. This is amazing. So I thought, I want to help other people feel this way. If I can do this in a few weeks, this could change the world. And so I went to culinary school. I went to the Natural Gourmet Institute here in New York City. I quit my job. I took out another student loan. I started working nights in a bar because, that's what you do. You go to healthy cooking school all day and you serve booze in a smoky bar all night. And that's when I started culinary school. It's a specialized culinary program to learn macrobiotic, Ayurvedic, gluten-free, all the healing cuisines. It was really a special time. And that's about the same time I met Morgan. I was working at the smoky bar serving beer. And there was this cute guy at the bar, and our eyes met, and I picked him up, and we started dating. And he was this budding filmmaker, and I was this food activist. And about a year later, we came up with the idea for Supersize Me. And I was just starting out as a vegan chef, and I was working with clients, and I was going back to school to become a health coach, and we came up with this idea to see what would happen if he ate nothing but McDonald's for a month. And that was Supersize Me. And he got really, really sick. And I helped him get better again. And I'm sure your listeners have heard of the film or watched it. So that was the beginning of the career there.
That was your beginning of your path in health and wellness through your own journey.
Yeah.
And that led to Supersize Me, veganism, and then something must have happened between then and now. And then you released 2 years ago, Woman, Food, and Desire. So there's a bridge there between the two.
So part 2 of the story.
Okay.
So after Supersize Me, I wrote my first book, The Great American Detox Diet, and I coached hundreds of people and, appeared on all the shows. And then we got married and I got pregnant, and I took a couple of years off and had a little boy. And then I wrote 2 more dummies books, Vegan Living for Dummies and Vegan Cooking for Dummies. So I was professionally vegan. And then when my son was about a year and a half, I found out something about our marriage that made me realize I could not stay in my marriage anymore. And I had to leave. And I was now a single mom, and I was raising a toddler, and I had to get my career back up and running. And I was exhausted and depressed and stressed out. And I started craving meat. This was bad. This was not good. Now, my hormones were a disaster because I wasn't sleeping, which puts you into insulin resistance and all the stress. My hormones were a disaster, and I started getting my period every 14 to 16 days. So I was totally depleted. And I've always been a little low iron, but this was getting dangerously, dangerously low. And I tried everything in the vegan framework to fix this, and nothing was working. So I finally, after struggling with this for over a year, I was craving meat and I wasn't letting myself have it. And I was just eating more superfoods and more hemp seeds and more sea vegetables and all the things you're supposed to do. I now was becoming orthorexic. Right? Sticking to what I thought was a right way of eating, even though the evidence was saying this is not right. And I finally went to the store and hid some eggs and some salmon under my kale in my basket so nobody would see that I was buying it, and brought it home. And I started eating animal products, and physically it felt so good. My body was just oh, yes. And my brain was like, what are you doing? Stop it.
So am I correct to say that your identity was wrapped up around the way you ate?
Absolutely. I'm sure no woman listening can understand what that's like.
The reason why I'm bringing this up is I was labeled paleo for years, and that got me into a hole in itself. But there's a ton of women listening that are coming from the low carb keto world, and they're totally into their food label.
Yeah. Oh, I know a couple of paleo experts who have had to secretly start going plant-based, who have had to avoid meat because it was becoming a problem for them. And I know vegan experts like me who had written books who had to start eating meat. And it becomes really problematic when you tie not just your identity, but your entire career and how you make money to it.
So how did you get over that in your head? Because that's a huge thing, right? Going out publicly must have been a journey in itself.
It took over a year. It took a lot of friends. Oh. And here was one of the issues, which I know a lot of women experience. And I've spoken to a lot of vegans or ex-vegans, ex-paleo people, whatever, who say, yeah, this was the hardest part. Are my friends still going to like me? Yeah. Are people going to make fun of me? Are people going to hate me? And to humans, that really goes to the heart of what it is to be human. We are communal creatures. And to be shut out of the tribe feels like death. It's very scary.
It's rejection.
It's rejection. But I think we downplay how important that is to us. It feels like, oh my gosh, we're out here alone. We're going to die out here by ourselves. And so leaving the vegan tribe, which I knew was going to happen if I came out of the vegan closet, as I like to say, I knew that was going to be rough. But luckily I have a bunch of amazing friends who are not vegan and a few who were very cool about it. And they were like, Alex, we don't care what you eat. One of my girlfriends is like, please eat a hamburger, please. I love you. You're dying. Stop this. Just eat. So luckily I had a lot of friends and they were very supportive. So when I finally did post my blog post that became quite infamous, I'm not vegan anymore, it went viral and I was not expecting that. I just was like, I need to send this out to my little tribe and be honest about what I've been experiencing. And still, I still take a stand for helping women find what works for them. And, in a week, I lost half my newsletter list and thousands of comments, really vicious comments were posted about this. It's still my number one most read article on my blog. A lot of people who I had thought were my friends viciously attacked me online and on podcasts, etc. So it was as bad as I thought it was going to be. It was worse. I got death threats, anonymous death threat emails from very brave vegans. And then there were people who are still incredibly well-known vegans who were very supportive. They reached out and they're like, we're so sorry you're going through this. We love you no matter what. So it just made me see that people do attach their identity to food. For right or for wrong, they will judge you about it. And that's why it's so hard for us women to explore what food really is for us, because we're so afraid of being judged and shut out, even if we don't have a huge online community.
Well, it could be the community we have on the ground within our little hometown that we live into. But that brings me to that place of having the courage to not only listen to our cravings or to the intuition that we have inside of us, but also having the courage to do what is right for us, whatever that it is to become a meat eater, that it is to leave your husband for whatever reason. We need that courage to step into our truth, I guess.
Well, here's what I've been getting really interested in the last few years since then is it took me a while to build up the courage to do it. And I consider myself a pretty brave person. I've lived all over the world. I've traveled by myself. I've moved cities. I've changed careers. I've done a lot of risky things. But we don't teach girls to take risks. No. We don't do that. In fact, we do the opposite. And I was very lucky to be raised by a feminist mom who had traveled the world by herself, who said, go do things, like go make mistakes. And it was still hard. It's still hard. And I have a 10-year-old son now. And even though he's a boy, so that brainwash stuff that I have in my head is less for him, I still don't want him to take risks because we just get worried.
That's the mummy heart.
Right. It's my mama bear coming out. But I think we need to change the future. We need to teach our little girls that, yeah, you're going to get hurt. Go do it. Go do it anyway. Go get your heart broken. Go make mistakes. Go fall on your face in front of people. And you know what? We girls have to cheer each other the fuck on while we make mistakes so that we can get strong, so that we can speak our truth.
Absolutely. And that brings me to the next piece is perfectionism. And that's for me something that I've been into for the last 3 months. Personally, I have yet to do anything with that professionally. But I think this desire for us as women to be perfect then creates that what I now label as a disease, an emotional disease called perfectionism.
Mm-hmm. And it is a total disease.
Yeah. So talk to us about your perspective on perfectionism, because I'm sure you've got a lot to say.
My version of perfectionism has changed over the years. It used to be really about I wanted to fit in. Yeah. And I think we all do. Again, it's very human. We want to be in connection with other people. So we want to look like everybody else. We want to talk like everybody else. But we also want to be the best so that no one can say anything bad about us. That's what it comes down to. If I'm perfect, there's nothing wrong with me and I will be worthy and lovable and loved and I'll be safe. Well, here's the truth. Perfectionism is BS and it's not possible. And it's killing us because you're chasing after something that doesn't exist. And it's no fun. Perfectionism is freaking boring. If everybody tried to be the same all the time, we'd be a bunch of automatons. So let your freak flag fly. Be weird. Just be weird. Develop a community of people who are pro weirdness and pro imperfection. I actually just held a bad art party about a month ago.
Cool. I want to hear about that.
I invited my girlfriends over and I said, bring over all of the weird crafting materials you have around or just a big piece of poster board. And we're just going to make bad art for a few hours. And that's what we did. We had the whole kitchen table covered with crayons and glitter and weird stuff. And we just sat around gluing shit together. I'm sorry, I swear a lot. We just glued things and drew things and we had so much fun. And it was not perfect. And it was great.
And I'm sure it was beautiful.
It was, actually.
And that, if I want to come back to this whole vegan paleo world, this perfectionism taint or puts a color on every aspect of our life. That it is through our diet. We don't start, and I hear that a lot from my patient. I can't start exercising because I don't have 3 days a week at the same time where I can go exercise. I don't have time to go shop at the best food store, so I'm just going to eat crap because I cannot do it perfectly. We have to stop that because it prevents us from moving forward.
You want me to tell you how I go to the gym?
Go for it.
Okay. So I actually went to the gym this morning. I joined the fanciest, nicest gym finally because I really want to go because the weather here in New York City is terrible and I can't ride my bike all year. So I joined the nicest place that has a steam room. And today I went and I lifted weights for 5 minutes. And then I went and sat in the steam room for 15 minutes. And that was the gym for me today. And
it was beautiful because I'm assuming, followed your desired.
Yeah, I did. I was I went to the gym today and I feel good. But it's funny because this happened to me 2 weeks ago and I was actually really stuck in this couple of days of just gloomy depression. And I was really hard on myself and I could not figure out, I was what am I going to do? And I was you know what? I'm just going to go sit in the steam room and I'm not even going to take out my workout clothes. And I was I went to the gym. I did something and it felt good. And yeah, once you start doing things that feel good to you, you really start to have fun and get into action and
Yes.
feel engaged in your life.
Absolutely. And that is what craving are for me. And I know from reading your book, Women, Food, and Desire, you have the same point of view as me. Desire are this message, and I call them in my world body messages. They're messages from our body that something is out of kilt and we need to take a different action.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a language. It's like your body's language of telling you what she needs. And it's just all these little micro movements of, I need this and I need this. Oh, wait, why do I want a cupcake right now? Just taking a step back. What does that mean? Like, what just happened? Or what have I been doing all day? Or what conversation did I have? And it's not to judge the cupcake. I mean, sometimes you just have the freaking cookie, it's like, and enjoy it. And that's fine. And then sometimes, you need to avoid certain foods. Like I was on antibiotics because I had a stupid bladder infection. So I am avoiding sugar because I got to get my microbiome in check, blah, 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 blah. So sometimes I still want the sugar. But I'm like, okay, well, I don't really need it right now. And I'm avoiding it to get my gut back in balance. Oh, you know what? Like my husband's been out of town for 3 days and I haven't had sex in like 5 days. And I need to take care of myself. I gotta spend a little time in my bedroom with the door locked here. Get out a toy. And that's just as good as a cupcake, if not better.
It probably is better. But instead of strictly seeing your pleasure associated with food, you've moved on to understand that pleasure can be associated to other part of your life.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things I've gotten really passionate about in the last few years is positive psychology. Okay. And these are, tested, studied things that people can do and mindsets that we can develop to help us grow our strengths. It's not about fixing what's wrong with you. It's about developing your strengths. And one of my strengths is savoring. And savoring is just like, and not just with food, though, with life, with moments, and with fun, with pleasure.
So when people come to you, either because you have as I said in the intro, a very highly rated podcast, Her Rules Radio, or people come to your website and they read your book, how do you teach them the process of learning to listen to their craving from another perspective?
Well, it depends on where they are, right? You got to look at each person, bio-individuality and all that. Do they have any like major red flags health-wise? If they're demonstrating major bacterial imbalance in their body, then yeah, we really need to look at diet first and get that in order, because so much depression, anxiety, hormonal issues are stemming from the gut microbiome. So that's one place to start. But there's always another level to it. What's your emotional life like? How do you deal with stress? How much fun do you have? Tell me about your family history. It's so much. How do you feel in your life? What do you think about your life? But also it is, I talk about the 4 root causes of cravings. There's bacterial, which I just mentioned, nutritional, which is basic. Are you getting, the basics in your body? And, your cravings can be a sign that you're missing certain nutrients. Women crave chocolate and we are all walking around magnesium deficient. Makes perfect sense. And then there's that emotional craving. So many women come to me and they say with like shame in their voices, Alex, I'm an emotional eater. And I say, sweetheart, welcome to the human race. We are all emotional eaters. Yay! Even the big, huge weightlifting guy at the gym drinking muscle milk is choosing to drink that based on an emotional desire.
And which one is it?
He wants to be big and bulky and macho.
There you go.
That's it, right? And then there's the physical cravings. We are animals. We need to be touched a lot. We need a lot of touch. None of us get enough hugs. We don't get enough sensual pleasure.
Yes.
Women, orgasms are so healing. They're so, so, so healing. You don't even have to reach climax, but if you can learn to, it is one of the best hormonal mood sleep balms that you'll ever have in your life. So when we were talking about little girls, teaching them risk, I think we should actually be teaching girls that masturbation is good for you. You should do that, where to do it appropriately, and that maybe you should explore your own body before you're with somebody else.
And there's no shame around it, because so many girls think there is a shame around masturbation.
Yeah, it's really easy for guys. There's still shame around it for guys, but there's such a joking culture around it. It's just assumed. But I didn't know that girls could masturbate. I mean, I did it, but nobody talked about it until college.
It's funny because I just interviewed for an upcoming podcast. I don't know if you know Dr. Rachel Carlton.
I don't.
You should read her. She just published a book called Body Wise, but prior to that, she published 3 books on women and sexuality and the importance to overall health of sexuality and how, I mean, if you look at it just from a center of energy, if you believe in the chakras, right, this whole area around our digestive system is where our center for sexuality is.
All of it.
Yeah. So if we don't have a good relationship to it for XYZ reason, then there's a ton of craving that'll come from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So much, our root chakras are down there. So much is happening in the space between your belly button and your sits bones. It's your second brain. It's your emotional brain. It's your digestive system. It's your reproductive organs. And let's be honest, the clitoris is one of the most amazing organs ever created in nature. Its only purpose is pleasure. Its only purpose is pleasure. But we women have only, and most women do not know this, we've only known the structure of the clitoris for the last 15 years. It wasn't even studied until very recently because women's sexuality is just not considered that important in the medical industrial complex. So the things that we women are experiencing when it comes to our experience of our bodies, our relationship with food, we've just been compared to men and told to do what men do, which is eat less, exercise more, and here, take a pill.
And produce a baby because it's an organ that are there for reproduction, not an organ for pleasure.
Right. Right. So we really have to, as I like to say, make our own rules about our own bodies, about what food, pleasure, about what life, about health, about what beauty is, all of these things. We have to redefine them for ourselves. And
I strongly believe that being that we are women, we are emotional being, and that is a known fact that we are way more emotional than men. That's a reason and a purpose for women in this world is to grow emotional being and children and so forth. That is a reason why there's so many women suffering with emotional eating and craving. A, because they don't understand what it means. And then B, because we don't look at our needs. That be it sexuality, connection with other women. We don't look at that. And then we're trapped into this weight issue that's really a message about something else.
Yeah. Have you heard of SAG disease?
No. Go for it.
Shame and guilt.
Oh.
Shame and guilt disease. It's a disease. Every woman I work with has so much shame and guilt about what she should be doing that it's literally killing us. Well, we can't make decisions for ourselves because we're putting everybody else's needs first.
Or let's just talk about body image, right? Which, again, it's all tangled.
How much more time do we have?
No, I don't care. I'll go longer on this one because it's very pleasant to discuss with you. But body image is, again, it's all tangled up in this whole thing.
It is. It's so true. I was just listening to an interview about girls and when they hit their peak confidence. It's 9.
Wow.
Girls, that's the height of our confidence in ourselves and with our bodies. And at about 9, 10, things start to happen. We're taught about our menstrual cycle And some girls are even getting menstrual cycles that young now. And then all the heavy burden and the weight of what we're supposed to look like, about what our bodies are capable of, or the problems that we're going to have now, or the fear about living in a female body starts to weigh down on us. And we start to quickly lose our connection with our body, our love for our body, our joy in our body. And we start to compare ourselves with every other female body that we see.
Yeah. And today's society makes it even more difficult because it's everywhere, right? Social media and magazine, everywhere we look at. So I think for us as women to move into that other space, we need to work through these concepts that we have in our head into what we should be looking at, but also unraveling the perfectionism that we have against our own body. Because yes, society puts pressure, but God knows we do put more pressure on ourselves as well.
Oh, we're so hard on ourselves. And I really, I encourage women that play and pleasure are the two most important ways to discover that love for yourself, to rediscover that confidence in your body. To go out and play is to be in yourself and not think about yourself. And it works. It really works.
So there's a lot of great discussion that we can have, and I could discuss with you for hours, but I want people to know where they can go to hear more from you. So right now you talked about play. I know you have an event coming out around that. So can you speak to that for a few seconds?
Yeah. So the last Saturday in April, it's an International Day of Play for Women. So wherever you are, okay, I want you to take the pledge. You can go to herplaydate.com and just invite a friend, or invite your favorite sister or your cousins, or get a group of girls together and go do something fun. And I encourage you to think about what you're going to do with one rule in mind. You want to end the day feeling better than you started. So that usually precludes drinking a lot of alcohol. All right. So women, we have a tendency to just get a lot of wine and sit around, which is great sometimes. But let's think outside the wine bottle. All right. Let's go. Let's go have a bad art party, have a bike ride. So I put together this whole list. You can download the whole playbook. It's all ideas and stories from incredible women like Dr. Christian Northrup has a story in there about play. A bunch of women have contributed stories about how play is important and how they do it.
I'm taking the pledge with you, and I'm going to bring my community with you.
Yay! Let's go play.
And I think that's going to help us work through everything we just talked about for the last 35 minutes together, of how we can not only hear our body messages to craving, but how we can step into action mode, and play is a huge part of that.
Yeah, it is. It's such a huge part of it. And really, let's think about, why are we trying to lose weight or get healthy? Why are we working so hard on our bodies? Well, in the end, because we want to feel good and we want to have more fun in our lives. Well, what if we just started having more fun now? Bingo. Let's skip to the end. Let's have that. And I have seen it happen over and over again. The biochemical and hormonal shift that happens in women when they're playing in their body and having fun and experiencing physical pleasure, it actually puts you in the right state to heal your hormones and lose the weight and all the things.
And to make the right choices that so many people say, I just can't make the motivation to make the right choices. If you allow yourself more endorphin, more dopamine, more pleasure, then stepping into making the right choice is going to be that easy.
Yeah, it's really true. So go play.
Amazing. We'll see you there.
Come play. Come play with us.
And then you have your podcasts, which used to be called Cravecasts, which is now called Rule Radio. Why did you make the change? Talk to us about that for a bit.
So I've been talking about cravings for years now. And what I realized is I've evolved, my coaching practice has evolved, and the radio show needs to evolve. So I talk about a lot of other things besides cravings. We talk about sex. We talk about relationships. We talk about medical marijuana. We talk about screen time. Like, is your phone killing your sex life? Like, we talk about a lot. So I decided to call it Her Rules Radio, where women go to make their own rules about life and body and love, etc. So
I would encourage our listener women to join that, because it's a great reminder for you to think outside the box by having an episode downloaded to your phone every week where it reminds you where you need to step into. Because when you've been programmed for years to think a certain way, you sometimes need a push every single week to get that reminder.
it's really true. And it's so fun, isn't it? Interviewing people that you love their stuff.
Yeah.
It's just such a pleasure.
Absolutely. So go check her out. So I'm going to put all the link in the show note of herplate.com and also the podcast, but you also have something that people can go and download, correct? Or a quiz, I think?
Yeah, it's called the Cravings Quiz. And you can learn which of those cravings types are you. Bacterial, nutritional, emotional, physical, really quick. It's like a minute. It takes a minute. So you can just go to cravingsquiz.com and take the quiz and get your report.
Amazing. So thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
And I hope to talk to you again and bring you back on the show and invite everybody to go see your stuff.
Anytime. It's been a pleasure.
Have a good day. There you have it. Do you now have a different perspective of what it means to be a woman and your craving? I think Alex did an amazing job being raw and honest with me during this interview, and I hope you learned a lot. Everything me and Alex talked about, including the link to join the International Her Playdate event on Saturday, April the 29th, will be in the show note, which can be found at stephaniedodier.com/046. And that's where you can also find the link to join my community online, and also the link to the Keto Connector, which I talked to you during the intro. If this is your first time here, then welcome. I'm happy to have found you and that you found me. We do the Beyond the Food show every Sunday and Thursday. Make sure to subscribe to the show so you get every episode. If you've enjoyed the show and believe that someone else would benefit from this experience, please share. It would help me spread the message and help thousands more. If you have a minute and could take a moment to review the show on iTunes with an honest review, I would absolutely appreciate it. Thank you again, and looking forward to serving you in the next episode.